Rolling, asking, why do you think woke activists have such an obsession with defending Islamism? Is it simply just a hatred of the West?
It's interesting. I think if you, if you look at their defense of the Palestinian movement, for example, some of them are even waving flags they think are Palestinian flags, and it turns out to be an Italian flag because they really don't even know what they're defending. And it's just sort of the flavor of the day for them. But listen, the bandwidth, the Islamists have really expanded their bandwidth across America, even though they're barely 1 to 1.5% of the population, Muslims being that, and the Islamists are a sliver of that. 30-40% max of the Muslim population in America is Islamist. They have a much larger consumption of attention in the West because of the funding and the fueling by petro-Islam from Qatar and Turkey and Iran and others that have spent billions in the West, not only building mosques that have become their they're broadcasters of Islamic identity politics, but also in universities and elsewhere. So, I think at the end of the day, the wokists see a utilitarian ethic in working with Islamists. It checks the box of identity politics and allows them to use a minority. And this is why when I've talked in media, I've talked about the bigotry of low expectations. Is as I'm arguing with the Whoopi Goldbergs and the CNN anchors of today about how the Islamists don't represent Muslims, and they tell me, well, who am I to say that? I'll be like, well, why do you have such a bigotry of low expectations? Inside the mosques, these same individuals that claim to be all about individual rights of Muslims to your face in the mosque have the sisters upstairs behind the curtain, have the sisters not on any boards, have the gay community prohibited from having anything to do with the Islamic worship service or anything. So they're so judgmental and un-American in the way that they govern their own internal institutions, and yet they turn a blind eye to that because it's a bigotry of low expectations. They really don't care what happens internally. And this was what happened with the BLM movement, is that so many of the leadership were vicious anti-Semites, and nobody held them accountable to that, as if every other life meant less than the Black Lives Matter movement, when in fact all lives matter. And this is why some of those responses were about a bigotry of low expectations. So some of the wokists thrive in this duplicity where their issues matter more and they want to devalue the other, when in fact, if you make truly people equal, it becomes about diversity of ideas and not skin color and ethnicity as being the only measure of diversity.